A few months back I did a thought experiment of sorts, trying to beat Skyrim at the max level just to see how different the game would be given enemy scaling and all that jazz. Fallout 4 is very similar in that regard, where at low levels you see common riffraff and at the higher levels stronger variants start to appear. A lot of these enemies would not be seen by normal players as they require some stupid amount of leveling. Only 23% of players, at least on Steam, make it to level 50, and I assume the number drops off rapidly the higher you go. Hell, I rarely make it past level 60 in my everything playthroughs. Keeping the trend alive of basically starting over with all but your levels and perks, I get how Starfield tackles New Game Plus, barring meta-related stuff. Today, I will attempt to beat Fallout 4 on New Game Plus. I am pretty experienced with New Game Plus stuff. Back when I sped-ran Xenoblade consistently, I would either play on New Game Plus or 100%, sometimes both at the same time. But I will treat Fallout 4 like I did with Skyrim, being based around Starfield, where I'd start the game as normal, but as soon as I'm able to, I'd level myself up to the maximum. Fallout 4 there really isn't a maximum per se before the game crashes. After about level 90, all the highest tier enemies will be in the world, so to make things more interesting, I'll start Fallout 4 at level 100, and let the level scaling do its thing. No rules for the run since this is more of a thought experiment playthrough, so how long will it be until I get viciously mauled by a Mystic Deathclaw? Let's find out. Starting out with the playthrough, I decided to start from the very beginning to see if the vault changes at all, and I take the time to play with the custom abomination creator. It is feeling alright at least. Once I had control, instead of going postal for 100 levels, instead I get myself exactly 383,625 experience, which is the exact amount you need to hit level 100. I don't get the experience right away for some reason, so I become an NPC until the door opens. Being in the mere presence of the Vault Tech Rep was enough to trigger some primordial power within me, and my power levels start to skyrocket out of control, being the setup for some shonen anime or something. As for building my character, I don't really have too much reasoning to my ideas, just giving myself a well-rounded build, just making sure I have the level requirements for crafting stuff. Though once I get the Pip-Boy, I can just bump up the special stats anyways. I play with the Tickle Me Elmo, find out on the telly that there's a chance for nuclear showers today, and every badass has their backs to the explosions, though I gained 100 virgin points for looking at the explosion. I was curious what happens when the world is behind me, and my wife has teleportation powers at least. When I try to get into the refrigerator, I got the side quest to start Mechanical Menace. Hopefully Ada can wait 200 years. And during the wait, Mr. Serial damaged my nay, and I emerged from my cryopod, still breaking the limits of my power. Since I am level 100 with a decent melee stat, these roaches stood no chance. And any damage they would do, well, I have a metric ton of health. I am not phased. I continue to poach the roaches, and I could grab my smartwatch, and I can funnel all of my perk points. Not going into full details on what I grabbed, just stuff that lets me forge upgrades, boost damage, heal naturally, all that fun stuff. Anything just to make my mind happy. Before going into the fresh sunshine, I did a save load. I don't want to have the power level UI on for an hour. On the surface world that is more fraught with danger, I descended down into Sanctuary like a bear ready to pillage a picnic, scavenging through the abandoned settlements in search for food, only to come up empty-handed that no one had the gall to have any captain's hats. The enemies here are still the basic bloatflies, nothing too fun, but we are in the blue part of the heat map, so you gotta keep things simple. Ready to make the world my oyster, as soon as I walked across the bridge, I watched off in the distance an alien crashing into the world. Honestly was expecting it to be a mini nuke or something. I ignored my pet, squashed some bugs, and entered Concord for the first real combat encounter. The raiders here were mere scums and the occasional psycho, all of which are lower leveled raiders, still trying to make things easy for new players. And inside the museum I continue to pillage what I could get, since everyone's going to be carrying the highest tiered equipment anyways. Battered, bruised, and humiliated by baton, I carved through the fodder enemies, perceived the idea of greater power, and talked to the Gravy about continuing the introduction. Back outside, I neglected the power armor since I'm a real man and I don't need crutches. I ignore it, rip off the minigun, and almost needed crutches after falling off the building. These enemies are low leveled. I don't need to explain how many new assholes these assholes got. We all know who the real star of the show is. I was expecting a leveled up Deathclaw, and when the lizard emerges from the Taco Bell experience, it was just still a basic Deathclaw. All my excitement turned into disappointment. It tried to pick me up, but because I have the power of plot armor, it has to gently put me back down. I humiliated the Deathclaw and bonked it with my stick, and came out the victor. Sure, I could have gone back to the museum to tell Preston the good news that Concord is free from microtransactions, but I have sided with the Minutemen a little too often, so my parting gift for Gravy is the endless despair of not knowing if things are going to be safe and being stuck inside for the rest of time. Happy birthday! I then walked down the road a bit and conversed with Rubbish for anything fun, Nothing really, just some stim packs, and I mugged Wolfgang for all his money. He wasn't having any of it, so Wolf and his gang are now fed to the wolves. Feeling very overconfident in my abilities, the first idea that came to my very small mind is finding a behemoth, and there is one nearby I could have some fun with. On my way to Carhenge, Grill wanted some cruel punishment, also he can meet his maker. Inside the Gorseed cabin, I had my first run with ghouls. These are still the level 1 variants, so into the earth they go. Before having fun with the giant, I went inside the sewers of Walden Pond, and went to town on the raiders here. Sure, they all have names, but no one is going to write it on their tombstones. Anyways, I came down here for Big Jim, which is a pretty funny weapon. I get to try on the behemoth at Carhenge, and sure, I do have crap DPS. Everything at these high levels have a million health, but I broke the sod's ankles, and he couldn't do anything, just sitting there in pain, awaiting for death to take it. But death wishes to play with his victims, and after a dozen or so more swings, the Goliath was toppled, all with a pipe wrench, and I continued my way to Diamond City. At a park, I had to tell Yogi Bad Bear, still the weakest variant, and at a nearby junkyard, I was met with some rabid mole rats and a glowing one, so slowly the level curve is increasing. I wandered my way into Carhenge, ready to fight the zombie apocalypse, but everyone here was still the lowest level variant, so nothing to be concerned with. Things got more interesting at the police station, where roamers were the common enemy. Finally, the game is starting to cook something fierce. All we need was an action set piece, so a truck was set ablaze, and a Wither Ghoul came out to play, which is the level 32 enemy. A considerable step up in enemy variety, it went down all the same regardless. Once the hostiles were disposed of, I thought about for a second helping with the Brotherhood, but a thought occurred, a rarity for me. I have sided with the Brotherhood kind of often, I always do ArcJet, and I have no need for experience. Chaos enveloped the vacuum of my mind, and I decided at that point, to make this playthrough more interesting, I will be enemies with the Brotherhood. So I went to town on Dance, and once he was kneeling, I committed war crimes, and finishing them off making me a permanent enemy of the Brotherhood. And I could clean out the police station regardless. Back outside, I checked Dance's level, since I haven't really done that yet, and he, like every other companion, levels with the player. This action will have some interesting implications later on. Since I have already forsaken 2 of the 3 ways of getting into the Institute, all that is left is the railroad, so I decided to head there right away. No real reason, just wandering around for early game. I did check out the pay to win option for any good loot, and yeah, he was packing some heat. I bought what I could, then hit up Green Tech in the Raider Den nearby. At this point, I knew I was out of the safety of the early game, and now I'm in the Lion's Den of reality, fending for my own, as in the battle I had to deal with quite a few veteran raiders, which are the first of the scaling enemies I came across, and are the strongest type of raiders. It doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things, mind you, just the fact they require a considerable more amount of ammo to take down. And they're carrying a good upgrade on armor, so slowly my defenses are rising. I reached the zenith of the base, plunged a raider from this world, and I could continue my merry way by making use of the plank. I continued the purification of the raiders, expulsing them from this world, and saw how unbearable the new Scooby-Doo shows are, and aimed a shotgun point blank at some poor sod's head. I'm smart enough to disable gore for this video, otherwise it would be a showcase of the new Picasso paintings. Before long I'm inside the church, telling the clergy to go home, and typing 1234 on the password door to be let inside. I'm questioning how I know the password to the door, when in reality, I know all the answers thanks to having been through this song and dance before. Hell, just check out my name. I convinced the engine enthusiast I'm a good guy, and talked to Deacon under a highway for a shady deal. I whacked the junkies in the junkyard, and talked to the dealer of information on the switchboard. The sewer dive was very uneventful at least. I continued my shotgun diplomacy, here on the basic sense. The only thing I have to worry about is getting scorched earth, and they all went down without too much fuss. I am pretty surprised they were mostly just basic sense, even though the leader was a very low level. Well, I grabbed my silly prototype, exited the police station, and entered the party in the streets outside. Yeah, there was a lone behemoth already taken out, and an explosion behind me. I sprinted my way through the dilapidated constructs, neglected after centuries, and rushed my way to the raider with the fat man. I did not want any of that nonsense, so I had to take him out. After the town was taken care of, I started to clean up and Deacon grabbed the fat man. It doesn't take a PhD in astrophysics to know what's about to happen. Somehow the madman just walked onto the scene no worse from where. We returned to the church and told Des the truth, and I'm let inside the train station to continue working for the railroad. I got work from someone I don't care a ton about, then began wandering towards Bunker Hill. I cleared out the street so High-Rise does not become magnetically attracted to his namesake, and for my first bout with super mutants, none were that high leveled, no overlords or that crap, they just took a considerable more amount of bullets to the head to take down. Also, I got an upgrade on my combat shotgun, and since I love using combat shotguns, don't be surprised I start using these weapons more in the near future. Once my premature distraction was done, I wandered into the Bunker Hill, talked to either the bear or bull market, and lit a cold-blooded lizard on fire, along with getting a Far Harbor weapon, and I don't plan on going that way for a very long time. I waited patiently for high-rise to show up, watched a festive fireworks show in the distance, and once I was done talking to the skyscraper, I investigated the explosions and came across some junk bots. I scrapped their components, and because I really could not be buggered to do automatron, I just let Ada be. After putting slugs into the salt mine, the escort quest with high-rise was very quick, and I returned to the railroad to do the next quest. But I really did not feel like doing more railroad stuff, no need for experience or ballistic weave. I abandoned the train line and departed for mass fusion to walk into Good Neighbor. I checked out Finn's level, and yeah, he was nowhere near the level cap. Just a kneecap. I just bought some shells, sat through a long load screen, and came across another super mutant camp. This time I had to contend with a warlord that was legendary. The super mutant scaling enemy, whose health actually naturally surpasses a behemoth. I wasn't really hurting on damage, it just took a long while to take down. And next door I came across a charred ghoul, which is also an enemy that scales with the player. After taking 2 high-level foes, Swan feels like a nice change of pace. I got a concussive hit sword, so I could get a lot of hits to plow through Swan's health. Though I got staggered more often than I would like, I brought out the shotgun, and now we are eating some goose adjacent tonight. Since Perk Street Station is right here, I figured the triggermen could get the trigger pulled on them. Sure, they do cap at level 25, so they do take a few more bullets to take down, but at least their heads are still squishier than moldy jello. Vats is hilarious with a crit build, so yeah, 12 PM signals the dinner bell, and the worms and rats and other scavengers can now eat a 4-course meal with their remains. I love a good shotgun build because you're just a hyper-aggressive ping pong ball bouncing between the enemies using the kinetic energy to splatter their brains. And Dino, I did not catch his number, but at least he's now 6 feet under. I grabbed my dump date, and after playing the game for how long now, I finally have my first level up. No wonder why not many make it to this high level. The escape was very straightforward through the corpses of mobsters. As for Skinny, his crew is only level 25, so I embarked on a point-and-click adventure on their skulls, and together with Nick, we escaped from the subway full of moldy bread and back to the surface of a 2-minute load. And since I'm in the area, I actually popped through a few locations because I can focus very well. The combat zone was a Wild West shootout, and everyone here was low leveled, so they did not last very long. Next up was Hubris Comics, from one egomaniac to another. The ghoul's body parts here were split between 3 panels, and there really wasn't any fancy foes here. Just cutting up the glow stick and getting a super sledge. And lastly, on my quick detour, I visited the library for an easy bobblehead. Just had to make sure I wasn't cut in line. The defense was pretty straightforward, no fancy enemies, just the run-of-the-mill grunts. And yeah, I think the mutant with the minigun somehow avoided one shotgun blast, but the follow-up had the force of both shotguns, so it worked out. Not for him though. Before Diamond City, I had to take care of a few glow sticks and some bad dogs. After a quick detour, especially for my standards, I finally made it to Diamond City. Piper tried to have a discussion with me halfway across the field. I applaud her for trying to press the info out of me, but I don't care. I did the sit-down interview with Nick, and next up is getting into the cereal factory. I was kinda lazy and I forgot to pick the keys off the mayor, so I had to ride the elevator up and took pot shots at the spy birds. And I continued to question my mental faculties by jumping off the elevator to the ground below. Par for the course, really. I was able to talk to the Geneva Convention without resorting to war crimes, and I slipped out the elevator again, and it takes me about 4 times or so to stick in my hand on top of a hot stove to learn what pain is. I loot what stuff I can, offer a puppy a jerky stick, and started to wander off towards Fort Hagen. Not much occurred on my journey south, just rationing out my meals of shotgun shells to the raiders at the stockpile, and the raiders both inside and out weren't much to write home about, just blasting the raiders into small giblets. People always argue against violent cartoons. I say Happy Tree Friends is totally a child-friendly show. After all, it's how I learned my anatomy. Red now rhymes with their name, I secure the loot, and I'm done with the location. I have made smart decisions. I have made dumb decisions. Most decisions fall in the latter category, but in my infinite reason, I figured now would be a good time to take on Nuka World. The gunners outside are pretty high leveled, not brigadier level, but pretty up there. I thought about talking to Harvey. I don't really care at this point since I was feeling very burnt out, so I skipped diplomacy and jumped right on the train. I think I missed Fort Hagen by a bit. I just ran through the Gauntlet. I am pretty high level so I can just damage boost my way through, plus I have been here a few times recently. My power levels are through the roof, so I just laugh at all the traps. They aren't very effective if your pain tolerance is really high, or your stupidity is even higher. The only instance that gave me trouble were the soldier ants near the end, just because their hitboxes are pretty weird. So for the Coulter fight, Coulter scales with the player. Despite me having some pretty good weapons, my god, Coulter was a slog. Like, nearly as bad as Thirst Zapper levels bad. He is level 94 at this point, and his health scales with the player. Combine that with power armor, and this guy took a long time to beat. Even just getting up in his grill would take off just a sliver of his health. I thought using the sword would help, but he just loves moving backwards. It took about 4 minutes, but eventually with an entire rainforest full of slugs and this raider's twitching corpse, I could finally be free, and now I can start Nuka World. Except I'm not going to be here for very long. Between the raiding and such, I just don't really care for Nuka World in general, and I don't want to be here for long, just doing a few fights of interest. The raiders here are pretty high leveled, and my first bright idea is hanging out in the Galactic Zone. It was not very fun, just a bunch of robots descending to my location, and for the most part, they're just a standard robot just reskinned. Sentinels were pretty fun because they're using the quantum nukes on me. The location I wanted to hang out in was the Battle Zone Galactica. Give the non-existent audience a show of a lifetime as a live guinea pig. Gotta be front and center to the Assaultron invaders, which are the strongest Assaultrons that scale with you, and they also have camouflage capabilities. Gods, I am not looking forward to the glowing sea. At the end of the Gauntlet is the Sentry Obliterator, the Nuka World variation of the strongest sentry bot in the game, the Mark II, except this one is a static spawn. Thankfully the battle was pretty easy, and I could come out on top. With the robots done, my next stop would be the site of the next Tremors movie that was not good after the first one. The strongest bloodworms are the glowing variant, not particularly high level, and I really wasn't feeling clearing out this place, so I bailed shortly afterwards. Outside of the park I came across a few vampiric blood bugs, the strongest blood bug that scales with the player, so yeah, these mosquitoes are Florida's final form. Speaking of Florida, I get to have some fun with some gator claws. These are basically death claws that only get up to level 60. Saito should have seen the sight of this hammer coming down on his skull. Once I was done wrestling gators to become the ultimate Florida man, my last stop in Nuka World would be the factory. The Nuka Lurks out here don't level up beyond their base level 40 variant, meanwhile the Kings are set at level 56. Nothing too strenuous, just needing more shells to clear out these shell heads. Oh yeah, I gotta level up again. As for the Queen, the fight wasn't too strenuous, just point in her direction and circle her until she died. Basically a normal Queen, but with a bit more health. At this point, I was very tired of Nuka World being Nuka World, so I returned to the marketplace to buy some more shells, only to put the game down for a full month. I was just that exhausted with Nuka World. Feeling very mildly refreshed with the month break that may or may not have been focused around Xenoblade X, I returned to the game and began my purification of Fort Hagen. The Synths were leveled up a little, the leader was level 40 but everyone else was much lower. When I got to the lower level I was greeted with a lot of damage, and someone turned a liquid ocelot into liquid. Also at this point I played through Fallout 3 for the first time, and I ran a shotgun build, so yeah, a lot of shotgun content for me for the rest of the runtime. Inside the basement, the Sims were starting to upgrade to the Starship Trooper variety, so slowly the level scaling is catching up. Life was starting to get down on me. I was feeling the weight of nihilism, the void of nothingness enveloping me. That was until I popped into a side room, where the divine forces bestowed upon me a captain's hat, giving me a new purpose in life. Rejuvenated by a wellspring of hope, I continued my purification of the androids, and we upgraded from the Trooper to the Storm, which is the highest non-dynamic synth type out there. As for the serial enthusiast, I checked his level and ooh. Kellogg is always 1.5 times the player's level, so yeah, a very healthy individual. While cereals are so full of processed ingredients, these shotgun shells are probably still healthier than the supermarket variety. I grabbed my giblets from the Comrade and watched Public Enemy number 2 move in. Back in Diamond City, I had a lovely rushed conversation with 2 companions I don't take along, upgraded my gear for what's to come very soon, borrowed superior firepower from Cleo, proved to Amari that I have the moral high ground, then get a blast through the past that involves a bathroom break because the memory den is a slog. Next up, Hell. But since I do want to locate a few more enemies to procure their levels, I decided to go south from the combat zone and wander around for a while. I got into a tussle with a super mutant camp with a lot of warlords. I wonder why I stopped recording for a month. It's like fighting 5 behemoths at once, because it was basically that many behemoths for hit points. At least I have a halfway decent crit build, so I can blast their brains apart, but oofda. Imagine if I was level 200. Once I was done losing my mind, I wandered my way towards the crappy filter land, wanting to avoid encounters that would cost me a lot of time, and more importantly, ammo. I basically went in one giant ass circle around Gunner's Plaza. I was hoping to wander into a super mutant behemoth, instead I wandered into a milder queen. I don't need power armor, I can take the punishment just fine, and turn this giant crab cake into dessert. And honestly, I think the queen is not nearly as bad as some of the other scaling enemies. With my hunt for a behemoth continuing, I decided to go where I know there is a behemoth, and that is near Fort Hagen. I'm still paranoid about the upper echelons of Deathclaws, especially the Jackson Chameleon variety, so I get a little jumpy in this deep fog. A bit to the southwest I came across a behemoth and a Deathclaw duel. The behemoth had the advantage, and then some. And a beta Deathclaw tried to ambush me. The true Sigma declares challenges, not try for a back attack. Also put the crippled Deathclaw out of its misery. Gotta preserve the natural order after all. Continuing my Deathclaw hunt, I went towards Nantic and dealing with an albino Deathclaw. While these lizards might be powerful, they have one fatal weakness: timber. Pathfinding continues to be Bethesda's weakness. Also, Nantic uses base enemies for the setting instead of anything more interesting. So, at this point, the game got a little weird. So a Brotherhood vertibird came flying in, and given I short-circuited the toaster, they should be enemies with me. But after clearing out the rust bots, which are basically just reskins of basic robots with some added gimmicks, they kinda didn't even bother with me and ran off. I have a feeling the endgame would be very interesting. Also, Yao Guai tried a showdown stance with me. Didn't go well for it. Ask for hell, and thou wilt get hell. And right before I crossed the Missouri River into Nebraska, first static Deathclaw was a legendary Mystic Deathclaw, which might as well be the strongest enemy in the Commonwealth. Well, it is finally time to become a man and not some coward. The mythic Deathclaws spawn around level 91 and scales with the player. I was expecting a difficult fight, but Deathclaws aren't very bright. Just shove a few pew-pew lasers into his chest and he'll stop breathing. Well, I mean, you can say that with a lot of living things, but that's beside the point. Once I blasted it apart, it straight up vanished. Not turned into a dust pile, no, just vanished. I had to turn on free cam, and it already dug its own grave. I guess time to cross the glowing sea, which is way more aggressive today than it should be. Mostly with the bloody Death Skull Rad Scorpions. The infinite leveling scorpions, thankfully, much like my skull, there's not much filled in, as for the most part, they just wait around for their demise. This has been my first time seeing these scorpions, and they just look weird. I also came across another mythic rare Deathclaw, but like my old magic decks, the mythic I pull are never any good. And the last annoying enemy here are the Stingwing Chasers, the dragonfly leveling enemy. They don't do a good job at chasing though. With my trip through the radioactive muck done, I talked to the Green Man, and now for Green Tech. Funny thing about Green Tech, no one here actually levels with you, so yeah. Also, I'm blitzing through this place so quickly, the scripted explosions are enough to kill the gunners of floor below. They are that weak, I guess. I have a shot fun, I am speed, and I am death. These gunners don't stand a chance. Just point in their general direction, and watch your life essence be splattered in 360 directions. Also, I took a missile to the chest like a champ. Truth be told, Green Tech was very anticlimactic, but still fun to go through on a blood-fueled rampage. As for the courser at the end, C2 is a different courser than what it could spawn, as this guy is only level 40, so all it took was 2 blasts to the noggin to fix him right up. And I made sure the gunners were no more, just smacking them so he can stand up.
Don't shoot.
People need to stop tempting me. With mission complete, I returned to the railroad, got a mission to set up defenses at Muckwater for some reason instead of the funny weed place, gave them the potato chip so they can calculate the sodium content in it. Then for a change of pace, there's one last enemy I want to show off, probably the biggest pain in the arse to kill, so I began my hike up to Far Harbor. The trip up there wasn't too much to write home about, took a few missile barrages to the face and came out just fine. My character is just built differently. Also, they can kill some ramen, I guess. I also came across a few junk bots, Quantum being their infinite leveling varieties, starting at level 60 to 75. The only good thing about Automatron enemies is that they're so satisfying to blast apart. I wandered north towards Green Top Nursery, took a while to find the car, but to the southwest of the settlement is a car with a trap jangles, and taking it out spawns a behemoth. As a fun little bit of trivia, behemoths actually have higher level variants, including a glowing, epic, and ancient, with the ancient being level 95. I would be worried, but shotguns are pretty effective on big brutes. I did get a little distracted on my northeastern advances, and played around with the forge. Yeah, these raiders cap at level 40, so not worth my time. The Brotherhood also didn't see me as a worth of time either. Had some fun with the Enclave base nearby, because they power level with the player, and at this point, they're like the only threatening thing in the Commonwealth. Unlike how they were in Fallout 3. I took the power armor from the Hellfire Soldier, and put it on the power armor on the museum. I repaired the set, donned the Iron Man, and resume my travels to the Nakano residence. There wasn't much to note in my adventure, and before long I'm hired by Kenshi to go search for his missing daughter. As much as I love Far Harbor, I kinda prefer to the base game story after all. I'm only here for one enemy. I partake in the town's defenses. No level gulpers or anglers for this part. They max out with the Gulper Devourer, venomous anglers which spawn pretty low leveled all things considered, especially compared to some of the higher level stuff you find in the Commonwealth. I just leave the town behind after the defense was done and made my way into the fog for one enemy. Well, first I had to show the trappers who's boss, their strongest being the ruthless variety, which is basically the veterans compared to the base game. At one point I did get caught up in a super mutant base, not a normal super mutant encounter, until I accidentally pulled out a sledgehammer when going into VATS on the football player, and took a spike right to the face. Thankfully it didn't do much and I was kinda surprised. I honestly think at this point I could actually take a spike outside of power armor, and I had a legendary trapper not drop a legendary item. I get it, game, you hate my guts. Anyways, the real reason I came to Far Harbor is for the fog crawlers, namely an enraged fog crawler, which is arguably the most durable enemy in the game, over 2,000 health, and for some dumb reason has 4,000 damage resistance. Mind you, the average enemy should have about 200. So yeah, this fight took a long while. Only laser weapons could do any notable damage, probably the only dangerous enemy left at these super high levels, and if there's any enemy in the game that I would consider be a super boss, it would probably be these enraged crawlers. Also, I forgot about the hermit crabs again. Probably should have fought an albino crab because they are level 61 with 3,800 health, probably one of the highest in the game. With the shrimp scallop, my time on the island is done, and really just one last enemy type I want to showcase. I returned back to the Commonwealth and entered Gunner Plaza. These gunners are at least putting a little bit more of a fight than their green tech runs. To be honest, I like Gunner Plaza as a dungeon, fast paced, and a good challenge, being in their base and all. I was able to find a Gunner Brigadier, which is the strongest of the gunners at level 94. It was quick, painful for the gunners, and even found a very funny shish kebab. Wes's brains are somewhere out east, and the rest of the gunners are no more. I returned to Virgil after forgetting about him for a while, then returned to the railroad to start the Institute. Finally. With the teleporter built and the game plan set, I talked to Tom to get warped into the better faction. Ignoring my primal instincts, I don't send Father's brain into bite-sized pieces to fit into a child's mouth, but rather say the right things to make him happy. I then talked to the faculty, and Liam just so the railroad has a little more going on instead of being the most boring faction, then relayed the information to Des, and started the only quest that makes the railroad different from the Institute, at least until the finale. On my way to the lab, I decided to return to the police station, and to my surprise, the Brotherhood did not open fire. In fact, not even bothering with me. Meanwhile, Dance's body is lying right there right next to them. I also popped a legendary knight here that dropped a lucky cane, and nobody even cared. When I said the Brotherhood might get weird later, this is where it really starts, and the chaos will continue. As for the lab itself, I thought I could prevent having to go into science class by shutting down the teacher and the director. I did not want to spend a while stuck doing science. I still have nightmares about the ant run. I just unlocked the door remotely and gave Molly some Molly and escaped with a D-. I gave the security violation to Liam, gassed the guards so the Sins have a new base to fall back to, though these guards are stupidly durable, and now it is Institute stuff until the end. On my way to the shipwreck after one too many drinks, I decided to pay the airport a visit, and the Brotherhood still don't care. The one major difference being there is no vertebra to get me up to the blimp, so I don't know what Maxim would have to say. At the yacht club, I wanted to play things stealthily, though at one point I did have to teach a raider how to swim. Didn't go well for him. But at least he's still floating, I guess, so I'm not a horrible teacher after all. I banked up a few crits, and sniped the sniper from afar so I don't have to deal with that nonsense. Instead of just sneaking up to the top, I just spent some time carving holes into these jack-o'-lanterns, though I think the pumpkins are going to collapse, but oh well. I got my recall code, ignored FDA suggestions, let inside pastries is totally safe, and mission complete. Though I did take the time to clean out the ship. Gotta make room for all the fish and make a new habitat. Even comes with free food. Next up for the Institute is the Battle of Bunker Hill. Considering I need to be nice to the railroad, I don't go in recalling the Sins. Instead, I just blasted a few holes into the ally courser, who is actually pretty decently leveled, though not really perceiving me as a threat. Or I'm so threatening I'm beyond mortal comprehension, and it is better to submit, who knows. This run has been weird at points. I lied to my son's face so that way I can continue to protect my fragile ego, and then slept through a meeting. Next up is Mass Fusion, which I'm very interested in how things will play out, giving Schrodinger's Brotherhood a steal. When I teleported to the top, I was expecting to have a shootout with the Brotherhood Knights. Sure, they gave Allie a bad time, but they literally ignored me. I was very curious how things would play out given my neutral nature to the Brotherhood, so at this point, I'd played pacifist just to see where this will all go. I did a jump to freedom and was caught by the good neighbor safety net. Back inside Mass Fusion, the knights were still not caring, and I could climb up to the top, though I think one knight might have blew themselves up. I grabbed a useless bobblehead, and then descended into the reactor. Sure, I didn't have any help, but I don't need help, just a very big ego. I microwaved my kidneys into a liver, grabbed my power supply, then blasted apart the sentry bot into one mighty explosion. Nobody down here except for the final Protectron were leveled, so the process was a quick in and out. At least before my escape, I did get a nice light show. Thankfully now the Institute side of things are just about done. Just had to walk up behind some gunners and show them what's up, old cowboy style. A good VATS build can be pretty funny sometimes. I gaslit Wallace out of his closet peacefully, button matched with a mic easily, way easier than me trying to voice record these videos, 14 attempts later trying to mention the sentence, plugged and play at the radio station, and became a manager with unpaid overtime. After the meeting that somehow avoided any layoffs, I'm reminded I'm a part of the railroad and returned to the train station to start their endgame. The Brotherhood entered from the back and they were hostile towards me, which is kinda different from all the other Brotherhood encounters thus far. Maybe they finally remembered what I did to the toaster. These knights thankfully weren't that high leveled, no paladins, just the run-of-the-mill knights with a few higher leveled agents. The other things were a little more interesting. One of the knights, namely the Star Paladin, which are supposed to be the highest level Brotherhood variant, actually turn-coded and helped clear out the lobby. Well, the knight had to go, so I kept at a distance, using a stealth boy, and plucked his health away, never once bothering to look at who's shooting him in the back. Now comes raiding the blimp in the sky. At the police station, the soldiers never bothered with me, just putting Thomas the tank engine into decommission. I am super curious how the blimp will play out. My curiosity is just killing me at this point, so I console commanded every soldier to kill, because I don't want the soldiers to go after me. I know it's cheating, but this is way more of a curiosity run anyways, and this is just a weird situation to be in, so I want to take this to its absolute extreme. As for the vertebra that comes to ruin your day, it kinda just flew on past and played around with some junk bots nearby. Well, it exploded from the fire, killing everyone but one. Let's just say he had sudden heart attack syndrome, and we rode off to the blimp. When I landed, I made sure not to equip the Brotherhood armor they give you as a disguise. I could just walk past everyone. Inside the first room, all the initiates were waiting for Maxim to show up. The game is set to the state where if you are in disguise, you can walk past everyone. I was spotted by Kells, but I did not want to deal with that fallout. Just curious if Maxim shows up at all. I planted the flowers of doom, and when I made my escape, Maxim never showed up. I wanted a riveting speech, but he's probably drunk or something. I walked off the ship, and everyone was surprised the stealth operation actually worked. By stealth, they mean just casually walking around. The Brotherhood's bubble was popped, and I returned to the railroad to start the nuclear option. I returned to the Institute, and it is time to channel my inner Abe Lincoln to free the slaves. As I'm blasting apart the synths, I never actually done this version of the nuclear option before. The railroad never gets to live very long with me. The charge through the robotics was pretty straightforward. Had to deal with an eradicator, which is a leveling synth, and for the most part, I just charged through the robots, unaware of my true master plans. Sure, the synths do have decent stats, but I'm actually ready for endgame for once. I have had these bots take a while before. Also, the Harambe clones level with the player, proving they are the ultimate life forms. When I got to the central lobby, I blasted apart the synths, and the legendary boss that spawns here dropped a Gauntlet rifle. That is pretty funny. With my new toy in hand, I made short work of the remaining synths here. Yeah, good thing I don't have gore enabled, or else a few people's heads would be on the ceiling. When I got to Father, he was not very happy about my little revolt, and wouldn't let me save people, so I gave him what's up. The last charge into the reactor wasn't very interesting, just charging on through because the backup is really stacked, and VATS with a headshot was enough to one-shot the legendary synths down here. Everyone's head went pop. I planted my resignation letter, brought the kid along for once because I did not feel like being a psychopath, pressed the funny button, and finished Fallout 4 on New Game Plus. But there is just one thing in the back of my mind I just wanted to investigate. Just what would the airport battle go with the Institute, given my glitch nature? So I started New Game Plus Plus. Well, my last save was before I built the teleporter, but thankfully the Institute ending is actually really quick. I rebuilt the teleporter, met the faculty again, ignored Liam because he is not 6, and traveled back to the ship. I was curious since the glitch was still going, so I no-clipped my way onto the airship, and Maxim was here, but he wasn't really for talking, though everyone is waiting in bated breath for the speech. Even Tegan wasn't one for conversation. Oh well, I returned to the ship, told the raiders it is safe to take a rickety sub to the abyss, and kept all the money, and before returning to the Institute, I had to take care of one loose end first. With the natural order restored to its desired state, next up is Bunker Hill. Still not doing the mission, just riding shotgun with the Courser. I continue to say what makes people happy and not firing me in this economy, and return to mass fusion. I have God mode to speed up the process, so I took the expressway down to the entrance. I grabbed my battery once again, resisting the urge to drink the funny Kool-Aid, Control-Alt deleted the robots, and nothing to note until the finale, so let's skip there. The Brotherhood still did not give a about me, so I could just walk right on in, break the generators without the Brotherhood getting pissed off at me, just shooting at the robot backup. And really, the process was super simple. At least I got a cool action shot of the chaos. Had to turn Ingram to the off position, and just watching the two major armies duking it out. And nobody even bothered with me, just my backup doing all the work. As for Maxim, he didn't even care that I did laser eye surgery to his kidneys. The battle was won, the blimp went down for the second time this video, and I found out who the strongest being in the world is. Father. He straight up took a mini nuke to the face and survived. I pop him in the face with his kidnapper's gun, and successfully finished Fallout 4 on New Game Plus. Again. Well, that was an interesting run. Not a serious challenge, but rather an experiment of sorts. Truth be told, I was expecting to start seeing the high-leveled enemies way early in the run, but I guess the low-level starting area is to protect those who decide to go postal. It was a different run, and things played out very uniquely, mostly with the Brotherhood. Though I wasn't a fan of the enemies that scale with the player, because my word, they became bullet sponges. Hopefully you'll enjoy this run, and learn a few things about the high-leveled enemies. If I do another thought run, I might just see how the game reacts to a 100 stat man on a scale of 1 to 10. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like, subscribe for more masochism and any other ways to torture myself, leave them down below. This has been Orpheolus, and I'll see you all in the next one.